So, it is 7 o'clock. It is Monday. We are here at the Milwaukee Makerspace. So, it's time for Model Monday. Today, we are, like I said, going to make little tiny chocolates. This will be a good beginner-friendly project. So, little truffle-y bits. Because the Valentine's Day is coming. When you all have to buy chocolates for your girlfriends with cash, so your wives don't find out that you're buying chocolates. All right. So, because I know we got some new people here, as an overview of the drawing environment, I'll just kind of go over this briefly here. So, we've got a screen that we will fill with models. In the top right-hand corner, there is a navigation cube up there in that top right-hand corner. And if I hover my mouse over it, things turn blue. Anything that turns blue, I can click on. And then I gotta just spin around to look at that view. I can also click and drag on that navigation cube in the top right-hand corner, and I move around in a little bit more finite way. Down at the bottom are a handful of tools down here. I'll be honest, I don't use these tools very often. Mostly because the first 5 tools there I can do with just my mouse or the navigation cube. So this first tool is the orbit tool. This orbit tool does basically the same thing as the navigation cube. So I can click and drag and I can twist and turn my model around. When I'm done using a tool, I'm currently holding this orbit tool. When I'm done using it, if I hit the escape key, it'll put it away. And then I can do whatever I want.
I'm not seeing that in the bottom of my screen.
You have a blank screen that's
Try
not full.
making it a full screen. I bet it's just clipping off. There we
So
go.
it is.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Hey,
Yeah,
Carl,
sure.
would
Yeah.
you like a laser pointer instead of your tape measure thingy?
Oh, you don't like my tape measure? I feel like I bought a laser pointer. Didn't we get a laser pointer?
I don't know if you did, I bought a new one.
Yeah, and then we put it right here.
I put it and it broke when it got forced in.
Okay.
So I replaced it.
The next couple of tools here, there's a hand tool for panning left and right. I just don't find myself doing this very often, but there is a hand tool. You can certainly use it. There is a zoom in and zoom out tool here. I just use on my trackpad, I use 2 fingers on my trackpad to zoom in and zoom out. And this is the primary way that I navigate around my 3D world. So I'll zoom in to an area, twist or turn it to an angle that I need to find it. Thank you, Mike.
Yep.
To an angle that suits me, and then kind of zoom in and do whatever I need to do here. And then I'll zoom out. I'll twist or turn my model to some other area, and then I'll zoom in to some other area that I want to do work on. And that's kind of how I choose to navigate around the 3D world. But there's the hand tools and stuff like that. Ooh, that's bright and green and cool. Thank you.
Whoa.
Yeah. Now where am I pointing? All right. Cool. As we start to draw things, 2 things will happen. So as we start to use these tools up at the top of our screen here, 2 things will happen. A is we will have a bunch of folders that start appearing over here. So as we use the Create menu to create sketches, we'll have a Sketches folder that pops up. And inside of that Sketches folder, let me pull up probably a better example. Here we go. Our sketches. All the 2-dimensional sketches that I use to make these objects are here in my Sketches folder, and they kind of appear as we go. As I take those 2-dimensional sketches and I make them 3-dimensional, we'll have a Bodies folder that pops up. And that bodies folder will contain all of the bodies that are part of our sketch. You can see I've done a great job naming my sketches and my bodies in this case. That is not always the case, but I encourage people to do so. The last thing that will change here as we start drawing is down here at the bottom, there's kind of a feature list, I guess we could call this, or a timeline of steps that I took from when I first started my first sketch to where I am now in the present here. So at any point I can scroll back in time and we can see, oh look, the first two things I did was I made a sketch and then I extruded that sketch. So well, I will show you how to work with that as we actually draw a thing, and let's go ahead and do that. Let's actually draw a thing. So I've started a new document. Fusion 360 has a tabbed workspace here, so at the top of the screen there's a whole bunch of tabs. If you just have one document open, you'll just see one tab, but there's a little plus button and you can always open a new document if you would like to. And I'm going to put this right here. All right, so in our usual fashion, we are going to start by creating a two-dimensional sketch. Fusion 360 is great because almost everything that you hover over will have a tooltip. So here the tooltip both tells me in the first paragraph what the tool does, and in that second paragraph usually how to use that tool. So we're going to start by creating a two-dimensional sketch here. So I'll click on this Create Sketch icon. And now if I just stop moving my mouse, again, Fusion just tells me what I'm supposed to be doing. So right now I want to select a plane or a plein air face. And what that means is we've got a three-dimensional world, right? And if we want to draw a two-dimensional thing in that world, we need like an imaginary piece of paper to draw that on. So those three surfaces are our imaginary pieces of paper that it gives us to draw our 2D sketch on. I am going to choose to draw on my top, the plane that faces directly upwards. And my trick for making sure, because it's really easy to get turned around in the drawing view and not know which way is up when you first start, is I'll use my navigation cube up in the top here, and I'll just go ahead and click on the word top. So now I know I'm looking straight down at that plane, and in order to pick it, I will just click on it. And we should see some grids pop up in front of us. Happy grids? All right, good. I see happy nodding faces, or astute nodding faces, one of those two things. All right, so all of our tools for sketching are now right here at the top in our Create menu here. So the Create menu kind of changed from the environment that we were just in to the sketching tools now that we are editing a sketch. You'll notice we've got a sketch palette open here. This is a little window with some sketch options in it. And if we choose from our Create menu to make a rectangle, I'm going to go ahead and choose to make a 2-point rectangle. And now if I just stop moving my mouse again, it says what I'm supposed to do. It says, hey, place the first corner. As a general rule, I encourage people to have some part of their sketch, when possible, connected to the origin. So, not to get too advanced, sketches are constrained in size and in position. And the only way to constrain your sketch in position initially is to have it connected to the origin. And having your constrained in position will just help you later on down the line. Yeah.
What does constrained mean?
Constrained means that's a good question, that it is
Nailed
lock
down and defined.
nailed. It is yeah, it is defined, right? So like this pointer is 6 inches. It can't be more than 6 inches. It can't be less than 6 inches. It is a rule that has been given to this pointer, and it can't. Well, it could be changed, but I'd have to do fancy things in order to change this.
And it's constrained if it's touching the origin.
Yeah, it is constrained in position if it's touching the origin
And if
point.
it's not, then it's in
Then it's
space
just kind of
anywhere.
floating. Yeah, here,
Yeah.
for example, here, if I just make a thing, if I just make a rectangle, I can move this around. Now, this is not moving around in a very predictable way because I am not constrained it in dimension either. So this is not how I encourage people to make rectangles. But here, if I properly, if I make a rectangle here, you can see this line isn't going to move around. It's kind of locked in place. And we want to have things that are kind of locked in place because having them locked in place will make them move in more predictable ways or change in more predictable ways when inevitably we make a change. All right, so I'm going to click on Create and then Rectangle and then 2-point rectangle here. And then as the start point of my rectangle, I'm just going to click one time on that origin. It's a click and move, click release, and then move, not a click and drag. And now, once you get to the point where you can see magical numbers here, I encourage people to let go of their mouse and embrace the power of the keyboard. Come to the dark side and type in numbers. So I feel like a good chocolate size is like 1 inch by 1 inch. Do we agree?
Yeah.
Now, if this is the first time you're using Fusion 360, I forgot to tell you to switch to inches because there are international standards of measurements, and we do not follow them here in this country. But is anybody drawing in millimeters right now? Yeah, cool. All right.
I'm drawing your feet.
That's cool too. You can just type in inches, so you can type in 1, and then if you type in IN, it will do a conversion for you. To get to your other measurement, you hit the tab key, and the tab key will bounce you back and forth between your two measurements. And you can just type in 1 and then followed by IN. You could type in any unit of measurement, so 1 inch is 2.54 millimeters, centimeters.
Cool.
So you could just type in 2.54 centimeters if you wanted to. Or if you're making fine German chocolates, maybe 3 centimeters would be a good size for a fine German chocolate. Yeah. But we're making dirty American chocolate, so we're going to make them in inches. All right, cool. So, and now if I hit enter, now I have placed my rectangle down here, a special kind of rectangle that is a square. Ooh. So, to change over our document units here to draw in freedom units, I tend to think in freedom units. It's not my fault. I was raised by the public school system. So to change our units in the document settings here over in our browser in the left-hand side of the screen, there's a little document settings triangle that you can spin down. And then if you hover over units, there's a little icon that appears right next to it. And we can change our active units to inches. There's a little checkbox where you can make it the default if you would like. It's actually the icon on the other side there. There you go. And then there's a window for you. Yeah, and then you can make it your default. Unless you just want to do the conversion in your head or make Fusion do it for you, I support your choices. You can use the measurement system that feels right, deep down in your soul. All right. Cool. Now that we're all drawing in inches, we can finish our sketch. We're done making the sketch here. So we've made a square. In order to finish a sketch, there are 2 ways to do it. There's a finish sketch icon in the top right-hand corner of the screen. a little green checkbox. The other way to finish a sketch here is on our sketch palette. There's a finish sketch button on the bottom of that sketch palette. Either way you want to do that is just fine. Once you click that button, all your measurements go away and you should immediately freak out and start all over. No, so we don't have measurements viewable because right now we're no longer editing that sketch. We're no longer creating that sketch. So the measurements are only viewable when you're editing that sketch.
Where's edit come in?
So once you've created a sketch and you want to edit it, in our sketches folder here, we now have a sketches folder. It's got a sketch in it. It's called Sketch 1. I highly encourage people to name their sketches, name their bodies, name everything. This is the bottom of our chocolate. Anything is better than Sketch 1. To name it, you got to click, pause, and then click again. And then you can rename it. In order to, if we wanted to edit that sketch, there are two ways that we could do it. In that sketches folder, I could right-click on the sketch, and I could choose Edit Sketch. Or down in our timeline, in the very bottom of our screen down here, we've got our first icon that has appeared. I can also right-click on that little icon, and I can choose Edit Sketch from there. And either one of those ways would take me right back to where I created that sketch. Cool, good questions, thank you. All right, so now let us make a shape, a chocolate shape. The best kind of shape that there is. One that is made of rich, dark chocolate, extruded from the finest cocoa beans, hand-picked from Guatemalan hillsides. I don't know where you get chocolate from. I'm just a dumb white guy. So we're going to use the extrude tool here. In the Create menu, you will find a whole bunch of different tools. Most of these tools here, they're kind of broken up here. So this top section, or this, I guess, the second section here, this section is what you'll use in order to interact with the sketches that we made. So here we can interact with the sketch. This next little section here is kind of for making modifications to a 3D object. This next little section is for making 3D objects without making a sketch. A lot of people like this route, but I like to make sketches first. But I leave it up to your own choices. And like I said, because Fusion is so great with these tooltips, if you're like, hey man, why didn't we make a box? That's how I want to roll. You can choose to just use the tooltips to figure out how to make a box. All right, but we are going to extrude. The item we are going to extrude is going to be our little square that we made. And if I am looking at this in a little bit more of a three-dimensional way, if you're looking at your square kind of straight down, it's hard to see.
Why does my square keep disappearing? Obviously do something up.
So right now you are editing a sketch. So I would say finish sketch. There we go, now you're sketching. Now there's your square.
Okay.
Yeah, so now in the Create menu,
Click and drag the arrow, or you can type it.
and then you can grab that extrude tool. And now you can click on your square. And now, here you're at the point where I'm at here. So both of us are looking straight down at our square. I'm going to use my navigation cube up in the top right-hand corner. And I'm going to look at it in a little bit more of a three-dimensional way here. And now I can see I've got a little blue arrow there. And I can click and drag on that arrow. And I've got some numbers that start appearing there. And a small shape. So I am going to make this chocolate 3/4 of an inch tall. I can type in 0.75. I can also type in I can also type in 3/4, and it will. You can see it's changed my distance here to 3/4 of 1 inch.
Click, edit the feature, so you can go back. Like, let's say you want a 3/4 inch extrusion.
Now this is close to what we want here. So because I want to make this chocolate in a mold, I need to have something called a draft angle. So if you have a cube that's coming out of your mold, if your sidewalls are straight up and down, it's going to be very difficult to remove that object from your mold because your sidewalls are rubbing up against your object the whole way. So what we're going to do, both for molding purposes and to make it look cool AF, is we're going to add a taper angle to our extrusion. So in our extrude dialog box here, I'm going to give it a taper angle if I type in a negative 10 degrees. That seems like a nice taper. For mold release purposes, we probably only need 2 degrees at most. That'd probably be more than enough, but 10 degrees makes it look cool. And let me just kind of take one round.
I'm still stuck in
That's all
extrude.
right. Yeah, so
Well,
here in the create menu, if we click on extrude.
You know why inches are better than
Okay,
centimeters?
now,
Yep.
just click on that?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
They're
And
more
then you can
familiar.
choose the thing you want to
When you're using
extrude.
centimeters,
Uh-huh.
it landed on the moon.
And now that arrow, you can just click and drag on it. I think you missed it. There
Right
you go.
there.
There we go. And now if you want to, you can type how big you want that to be. So I made mine 3/4 of an inch, but you can make your chocolate however you want to. And there you go. Now, you hit enter, which is the normal thing to do. If I hit enter, I don't have my taper going on here. I go, oh, I want to change something about the way that my extrude looks here. So just like our sketch appeared down here in our timeline, we have an extrude little icon that has appeared down here as well. And just like our sketch, anything down here in our timeline, if we right click on it, we could say edit feature. And now we go back to where we were making that extrusion, and I could change the distance, or in our case right now, what I want to do is add a taper angle. So I want to give it a taper of negative 10 degrees.
Oh, okay.
Click cancel. Try it again. Oh, cool. All right. It fears my power.
Yep.
You know, sometimes when I just look at the fusion, it goes, oh, sorry, Carl. Yeah.
Select the one.
Surprising about something that looks just like that.
Yeah. Okay, good. All right, perfect. So now,
Then you hit OK.
yeah, then we can hit OK. Yeah. Yeah.
You start clicking.
I tend to click before I know what I'm doing.
That's all right. That's all right. Yeah, very common for people to be excited and like, look, I'm in shape.
3 edges.
All
I
right.
don't see that the hidden backlines though.
Yeah, it's opaque for me
Ah.
as well.
Good point. All right, so this is the one thing that I've changed from the default that Fusion 360 automatically does, and I decided I don't like it. So what you're seeing is not the back edge of my shape, it's actually my sketch. So the default here is the first time you use Fusion 360 or the first time you extrude something from a sketch, it turns off the visibility on the sketch for you. And I've changed that setting because I think it's annoying. Because oftentimes I will draw multiple things on one extrude in one sketch and then extrude many things from it. So I've changed that preference. So just know that you can hide or show a sketch. And I'll show you preferences after class if somebody super really wants to know where that is. All right, cool. So we've got the beginnings of a chocolate. What I'd really like to do is add a little detail to the top of our chocolate. So a little recessed area and maybe wavy pattern or polka dots or something like that, just to give our chocolate some character. So from our create menu, I'm going to go ahead and choose to create another sketch. I'm going to create my sketch. Now, in addition to those 3 drawing surfaces that we had initially, those 3 drawing surfaces are still here, I can draw on any flat surface. So this flat surface here, is the one I want to draw on. It's the top of my little chocolate. So I can create a sketch right on the top of that chocolate. And when I click on that face, I spin around so I'm looking right at it. I've got my familiar...
Does it automatically?
It does, yeah. It twists that view around automatically so you can look right at whatever 2-dimensional surface you've chosen. In like a... So you're normal to the surface that you're looking at. Yeah. I can still move my view while I'm in a sketch. So I'm still making a sketch here, and I use my navigation cube in the top right-hand corner. I can still twist or turn around my view there. I don't always. Sometimes it's really useful in a 3D environment to see where you're at, but normally it's best I think closer in time. All right. In the Create menu are all the tools for creating 2-dimensional lines and sketches. In the Modify menu are some tools for modifying those lines and sketches that you made. And one of the tools here is the Offset tool. And if we choose this Offset tool, if we hover our mouse over the outside edge of our top of our little chocolate, it turns blue, and I can click on it, and now I've got a little double arrow or double triangle thing that I can move around here. I'm moving a little red line around. For me, making it a negative number goes inside of my box, and that's what I want to do. I want to have a little offset square inside of my box, and I'm going to make it negative 0.05. Just a small little recess there. And then I'm going to click on OK. All right. So now I am done making this little sketch here. So I'm going to go ahead and click on the Finish Sketch button on my sketch palette.
If I wanted to change that offset dimension after I've done it, and it doesn't look right, how do I go back and
You
say,
could
okay, I
totally
gotta
do that.
change it?
So if I come back here to edit my sketch here, my offset number has appeared right up here. This is just kind of a dimension that it is placed in here. I can move that anywhere that's easier for me to see. To change it, you just have to double click on it.
Uh-huh.
And you can change that to whatever looks the tastiest.
So this sketch now is just a square containing a smaller square.
Correct.
Great.
Yes. Very meta. We only draw squares in Model Monday. Square only. We're a square only kind of institution. It's hip to be square and stuff. Okay, so I've got a sketch to name in my sketches folder here. So I'm gonna click on it one time and pause, and then click a second time, and then I can name this. This is the top of my job. So I'm gonna call it top. Now,
How did you get to change the name?
so if you click on the word one time and then pause and then click a second time, and it should highlight all blue, and then you can change it to whatever you want. The best top ever. Modesty.
You might have to finish your sketch first before you can.
That is
change
true.
the
You
name.
might have to, yeah.
I just erased it somehow. I hit this
I
thing over
used to
here,
have
it
it
disappeared.
there. So yeah, try clicking on finish sketch.
Oh,
There you
okay.
go. Cool.
So if I went back here,
There you go.
type in
Try. You gotta click one more time.
one more time.
Yeah.
Oh,
There you go.
okay. They called it, what did you call it?
I called mine top. Well, I
Top.
called mine the best top ever. But you know, top is good. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Cool.
Too quick to hit buttons.
That's all right.
Select.
All right. So now the next thing we're gonna do is I'm gonna go back to the extrude tool. So if we click on create and then come down to extrude, that same extrude tool that we used the first time to make our chocolate shape, I'm gonna choose as the profile that I'm going to extrude that little inset square that we made. Now, something I didn't point out the first time around is we have an option in our extrude dialog box called operation. The first time we extruded something, the operation was set to new body. So it was making a brand new body here, because we didn't have any bodies to do anything else with. It was the first body we made. This second time I'm using the extrude tool here, if I click on this blue arrow and I pull it up, the default operation here is set to join. So it's saying, hey, obviously you want to join these items together. If we take our blue arrow and I move it the other direction, if I move it down into my cube here, you can see I'm going into it, then it turns red, and my default operation here changes to cut. This is indeed what we want to do. But just know that you don't have to use those default operations. You could change it to join if for some reason you wanted to do that, or make it a brand new body. But we do indeed want to cut out a little recess in the top of our chocolate. So if I say OK, that is exactly what it'll do. It'll make a little recessed hole, a little recessed kibble of bit there. You know, it doesn't need to go down very far, just a little bit. It's fine, cool, sweet recesses, bruh. All right, cool. So now, what I'd like to do is I'd like to clean up our edges here a little bit. So chocolates don't have a lot of sharp edges. In fact, the world does not have a lot of sharp edges. So I'd like to add some fillets to our chocolate bit here. And I'm going to do that in the modify menu. The second option from the top here is called the fillet option. It's also the F key on the keyboard, for those of you who love keyboard shortcuts. There are two different ways that I can use this fillet tool. So I can pick on faces, if I pick a face with the fillet tool, it'll add a fillet to every edge that face touches. So that's an option here. I really want to put a round over on both of these edges. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to pick that face as my selection option. And then the other way to use the fillet tool is you can pick on individual lines. So I'm going to pick on the 4 individual lines that are vertical on my little chocolate cube here. Chocolate rhombus. Is it a rhombus if it's a cube? It definitely has 90-degree angles. Or is this just like a parallelogram?
Trapezoid.
Trapezoid? Yeah, there you go. Thank you. All right. And I'm going to give it a dimension here. Like 0.05? Nope, way too much. 0.02. If you try to type in a fillet that is bigger, Fusion will just swear at you and say, nope, can't do it. And it can't do that because the radius of the fillet cannot be wider than any of your faces. So because our faces were, 0.5, probably the biggest fillet it will let me do is 0.25, 0.025. If I try 0.026, oh no, let me do that. That's interesting. Oh, so 0.028 for some reason it tells me to go away.
How do you get it to do the whole top surface?
So I picked on, instead of the edge, if you choose the face, well, you might have to zoom in. That's interesting. Well, I'll let you choose a face. Try it again. Yeah.
Oh, there you go. Okay.
So
now I can go
in the
modify,
mode,
fill it,
there we go.
type in 0.05,
0.02.
0.02.
There we go. Cool. Filleted edges? No, not okay. Cool. Hit the little X button. It'll get rid of all the selections that you have. Try just doing the top face.
Display settings.
You know what else? Well, try just doing the top face. So you've already got it open here. So if you hit the plus button and zoom in, so you can see it a little bit easier. Try just doing that as like 0.02. There we go. It'll do that.
Cool.
So for some reason it didn't want to do the edges. But you can hit the plus button again. And now you can pick on your 4 edges if you want to.
Cool.
Environment, photo, effects.
Probably won't be able to use that tool when you're in a selection.
Object visibility, all.
And now you can type in a separate dimension to that. So you can try 0.02 again. Yeah, there
Like
works.
that,
Yeah.
This is the
Yeah,
color.
Yeah.
Sometimes if you're trying to fillet many things at once, for whatever reason Fusion doesn't let you, but if you do them separately, sometimes it works just fine. So,
He selected.
like we had that problem just in the back there.
I selected the individual.
All right. So I'm going to go ahead and click on OK here.
But Carl's better at this.
And now the last thing that we have to do for our chocolate is give it a little design in the middle there. So the way that I'm going to do that
Yes.
is I'm going to come up and we're going to create a new sketch again. So I'm going to click on the create menu. Now something that's kind of important here is if I have all my sketches on, what I really want to be able to do is click on the face that exists in the recess, like that recessed face there. You will find that hard to do if your sketches are turned on. So I've got the visibility on my sketches, the little eyeball next to them turned on. With that visibility on, it'll be very difficult for me to click on that face because there is a sketch that exists between you and the face that you need to click on. So here's an occasion where it's handy to turn off that sketch. So my sketch that I called the best top ever, you may have just called top. If I turn that off, now it's really easy for me to select that face that exists in the inside of there. So turning off that visibility and remembering that there's like a stack of things in front of you. There's a three-dimensional world right in front of you. All right, so now I'm going to click on the Create menu. I'm going to choose to create a sketch. I'm going to pick that little interior face that I just talked about to create my sketch on. And on this little interior face, I'd like to make some wavy lines. That's what I'm going with. I saw some chocolates that had wavy lines on the top, and I went, that's a chocolate for me. That's my kind of chocolate. So from our Create menu, I think the best way to make a little wavy line is using probably the most complicated tool in the sketching environment, the spline tool. I tend to only use fit point splines. Control plane splines are kind of weird. So fit point splines. And now if I hover over the edge of my interior face here, I get a little blue X that appears and I kind of snap to it. That's telling me that I'm connecting to that line there. So I want to make sure that I'm connecting to that line. And I'm just going to draw some sort of little wave here. And then I'll hit the little green checkbox to finish that. I'll do that one more time just because I kind of did that quickly. So click on the Create menu. I'll choose Spline. I'll choose Fit Point Spline. I'll place the first point from my Fit Point Spline up at the top edge of my box.
I don't have a spline and a Create. Just I'm missing something.
So first create a sketch.
Sketch.
There we go. And now you can click on that little interior face there. There we go.
Now you go to Create.
Now your spline tool will be there.
Spline.
Yeah, and then Fit Point Spline. And then, yeah, there we go. Cool. Your wave shape is up to you. I leave in your own control the kind of wave that you want to make here. Let me just suggest that less is more. So if you have a wave with 32 points in it, you know, less is more. That's what I'm saying. I mean, your chocolates won't taste as good as mine. Because that's how physics works. Okay, cool. So I'm going to click and place the last point of my line. Now, to finish making my spline, there's a little checkbox down here. If I just hover over that checkbox, it turns green. I get the little hand tool. So now I can click on this little green checkbox. Finish my spline there. Oh, you might be able to push enter. I know escape does not work. Escape works when you're using the line tool, but not when you're using the spline tool. So, yeah. All right, so I've got little control points, and I can tweak and move these around if I want to. But what I really want to do here is I want to make a whole series of these. I'd like them all to be completely identical with each other. And the way that I'm going to do that is not by trying to draw them all by hand individually with the spline tool. The way I am going to do it is in the Create menu, there is an option called Rectangular Pattern. And if we choose this Rectangular Pattern option, I can pick on the little spline that I made as the object that I want to make a pattern of.
Repeat that one more time, please.
Sure, yeah. From the Create menu, I choose Rectangular Pattern,
Okay.
and then the object that I'm going to make a pattern of is that little spline line that I had right there. And now I've got a little arrow that I can click and drag out. I actually would like to make this pattern symmetrically from the center. So I wanted to spread out from the center symmetrically. And we can do that with one of the options here in our rectangular pattern window is I can change this direction to from one direction to symmetric. And then I can drag out my little pattern to be as wide as I want it to be. Oh boy, I must have clicked OK. I can drag out this thing so it extends out past the lines there. I'm going to add multiple waves here, like 12. 12 looks good to me. A whole bunch of waves. You can have as many or as little waves on your thing as you want. They do not necessarily need to go. That's a nice wave, actually. Very nice wave.
That was
Cool.
okay. I got a different.
Actually, I like that a lot. That's super cool. You should roll with that.
Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't get the full screen that you got though.
Yeah,
I got like a much smaller.
So then you can change the number there.
Yeah, I've got, I wasn't.
Oh, you had a small little
Yeah,
screen.
you got two quantities.
Hold down
I got two
more on
quantities.
the side.
You got two lines. You can change it to more. So you can change
So
it
I've got a
to
quantity here and I got a quantity there.
yes. So technically, this is a rectangular pattern. So it's for making a pattern in two directions. We're only using one direction in this pattern.
So I should change that to one.
Where I could run the scroll bar and see all of that.
I think it's the other one you want to change.
Okay, they should. Okay, let's go with just the one then. I tend to talk to myself.
That's all right. This is
There we go.
yeah. There you go.
Now, how do we constrain it to within the?
Well, so you'll make them go out past the edges. If you want it to take up your entire, if you want waves from beginning to end, you can just kind of make it extend out past. And you may have to drag your arrow. There you go.
You can't have how to constrain it to the square.
Well, so we'll leave it spell out the outside of the square, and that will totally be fine. And then when we go to extrude these bits, which is going to be our next step here, so I'm going to click on the OK button here now for my pattern. And now I'm going to finish this sketch. So in my sketch palette, I'm going to click on the Finish Sketch icon. Now I've got a sketch to name here. So this sketch that's labeled Sketch 3, I'm going to call this my details. My little detaily, or you can call it waves, or whatever you want to call it. And now if I look at this in a little bit more three-dimensional way, if I choose one last time the extrude option from our Create menu here, I'm going to go through and just pick every other wave. So I just picked every other one. from right to left. And now I'll extrude that up until just before my curve, or just before my fillet. Because I'm extruding this up and there are this extrusion directly intersects with another three-dimensional body, the operation here, like before we chose to do a cut operation, this we are doing a join operation. So we're joining all these bodies that we're extruding to our chocolate body here. And then I'm just going to say, okay. And then I'll hide the visibility on that sketch. And there we have it. There is our tiny little chocolate. The little chocolate. Yep, I like just a couple of waves too. I think that's a cool decision.
Did you do a taper angle for this one?
I did not. But we probably should have, honestly. Maybe not. Honestly, I don't think the vacuum former is gonna get in those little details. When I go to vacuum form this, I don't think it's gonna vacuum form in there very well. So, as a side note, what I'm considering doing when I go to vacuum form this is I might actually print something that looks more like this, where I take the bits of the wave that I did not pull up, and if I take these and I cut them down through my entire shape, so now my chocolate is got a bunch of holes in it, right? And the reason I might experiment with this is now the vacuum has a way to suck that part of the plastic into those nooks and crannies and crevices. If air can get in there, it might be able to pull that melted plastic down in there slightly. So that's something I'm gonna try. Yeah.
I've gone through this join process and okay does not come up. So obviously I haven't done something right yet.
You haven't given it a dimension. A
Dimension
distance.
being
How high you want to extrude that bit up. So like 0.01 or 0.02. There we
Okay.
go. And now you can say okay. Nice.
And then
Nice
how do I go back to
waves.
see it actually?
So just use your navigation cube. You can twist and turn that around. There you go.
Okay.
Yeah. Now, if any of those you wanted to change, you could, let's say if, for example, if I'm looking at my chocolate now and I go, oh, I kind of wish my recess, wasn't quite as deep or was a little bit deeper. This is the extrude where we made our little recess. So I could right click on it and I can say edit feature. Now I've gone back in time to the place where I was making that extrusion, and I could make it shallower if I wanted to. Let's go with 0.25. Now my extrudes come up maybe a little high in my little waves. So this very last extrusion that I made here, I could right click on it, say edit that feature, and I can change that distance to something smaller if I wanted to. So you can do some tweaking around after the fact using these features down here in the timeline. Cool. Now all of your girlfriends will be happy, and don't tell any of your wives that I told you how to do this. Those are my, Valentine's Day infidelity jokes, because infidelity jokes on Valentine's Day are always funny. No, apparently not. Okay, good. All right, we'll see you next week.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.